Hello and welcome to Standard Voice Television Global News at 3 p.m. today, 28 February 2026, equivalent to Islamic calendar 11th Ramadan 1447 after the Hijrah of the Noble Prophet. The headlines. President Tinubu urges National Assembly to guard against abuse of state police. Zamfara government approves employment of over 3,000 qualifying teachers. Troops arrest scores of terrorists and rescue over 400 captives nationwide. And on the international scene, United Nations describes violence against women global emergency. On sport news, federal government hands over Ahmadu Bello Stadium to Kaduna State for rehabilitation. Details of these and more will come to you in the news bulletin. I am Sumayya Mustafa. The House of Representatives have been charged to ensure that the proposed constitutional amendment for the establishment of state police includes safeguards against potential abuse by governors. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made the call during an interfaith breaking of fast with members of the Green Chamber at the presidential villa in Abuja. He emphasized that the establishment of state police should not be a straight free-fall for everybody, but must be structured with checks and balance drawn from past experiences. Tinubu's charge to the House followed similar appeals to state governors on Monday and to the Senate on Wednesday, intensifying his push for constitutional change ahead of the 2027 general elections. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has asserted that the 2027 general election will be a contest between the All Progressives Congress APC and Nigerians. Atiku, a chieftain of the African Democratic Congress ADC, made the declaration in a statement issued by his media office while reacting to the defection of Governor Ahmadu Fintiri of Adamawa State to the APC. He warned that no volume of political defections will translate into genuine public support for the ruling party. The former vice president also said political realignments were not new and that every politician is free to choose a path, noting that even members of his own family were entitled to independent political positions. The Waziri in Adamawa, however, described the wave of defections by opposition governors as evidence of pressure and intimidation rather than a sign of strength. Moving on, the African Democratic Congress ADC has rejected the revised 2027 general elections timetable by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), describing it as a politically biased plan designed to favor the re-election agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. National Publicity Secretary of the party, Bolaji Abdullahi, in a statement argued that the new deadlines and compliance requirements under the Electoral Act 2026 create near impossible hurdles for opposition parties seeking to field candidates. The statement said the requirement that political parties submit a comprehensive digital membership register by April 2, 2026 effectively bars opposition parties from participating. It will be recalled that INEC had initially scheduled the 2027 presidential and National Assembly elections for February 20, 2027, while the governorship and state houses of assembly elections were fixed for March 6, 2027. Still in the news, the main opposition People's Democratic Party PDP says the verdict of an Oyo State High Court delivered on February 27, 2026 is a vindication of both fact and law. National Publicity Secretary of the party, Ini Ememobong, who made assertion in a statement, commends the court for its courage and fidelity to justice. He also explained that the judgment reaffirmed the fact that the Ibadan Convention was conducted properly, transparently, and in full compliance with the party's constitution and the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Emomobong said that the PDP remains committed to pursuing all legitimate legal avenues to ensure that justice is fully served. The statement also expressed confidence that the appellate courts will, in like manner, uphold the law without fear or favor, affection or ill will. Moving on, the Zamfara state government has approved the recruitment of 3,050 qualified teachers in the state's basic education system. Executive Chairman, Zamfara State Universal Basic Education Board, Nasir Garba Anka, announced the approval of the exercise by Governor Dauda Lawal. He stressed that this landmark approval demonstrates the commitment of government to revitalizing the education sector and addressing the shortage of qualified teachers across public, primary and junior secondary schools in the state. The executive chairman also applauded the governor for the timely intervention, describing it as a major landmark in the ongoing efforts to reposition the education sector and promote sustainable human capital development in Zamfara State. The presidency says the country is now better positioned to confront the long-standing challenge of ALMAJIRI and out-of-school children nationwide. Minister of Education Maruf Tunji Alosa made the assertion while supporting Olong Bebe-led Committee of State Commissioners of Education in Nigeria during a peer learning webinar aimed at advancing coordinated education reforms nationwide. He also described the initiative as timely and fully aligned with national education priorities and reaffirmed the federal government's commitment to collaborative national action. Alosa stressed that stronger collaboration between the federal and sub-national government remains critical to sustainably reducing the number of out-of-school children. Chairman of the committee and Kwara State Commissioner for Education, Lawal Ologunbebe, said the initiative signals the shift from consultative dialogue to result-oriented coordination anchored on data, peer accountability, and policy harmonization. The news is coming to you on Standard Voice Television Global News. Still to come in the news. Troops arrest scores of terrorists and rescue over 400 captives nationwide. And on the international scene, we will bring to you that United Nations describes violence against women global emergency. And on sport news, you will hear that federal government hands over Ahmadu Bello Stadium to Kaduna State for rehabilitation. Details of these and more will come to you after this break. Welcome back from that short break, and now the news continues. Nigeria's troops deployed to different theaters of operations across the country arrested 312 suspected terrorists and rescued over 400 captives in the month of February. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Michael Onoja, while briefing newsmen on the ongoing military operations in Abuja, disclosed that troops also killed scores of terrorists in the month of February. The Military High Command also added that it facilitated the surrender of 46 insurgents and their families. According to him, in the northeast, troops of Operation Hadunkai sustained its kinetic campaign against Boko Haram, Islamic State West Africa Province ISWAP, and Jama'at Ahl Sunnah Lid-Da'wat al-Jihad, JAS factions, restricting their mobility and logistical capabilities through joint efforts with hybrid forces, the Civilian Joint Task Force and local hunters. Still in the news, a fire outbreak at Madrasatul Rabia al-Islamiyya in Gusau, Zamfara State has claimed the life of a student teacher, Suleiman Usman, and destroyed classrooms and property. The secretary of the school, Malam Bilyamin Salisu Bakwe, who confirmed the incident, said only 3 students were inside the affected block when the fire outbreak started. He also explained that 2 of them escaped while Usman was trapped and burnt beyond recognition. Other students were sleeping in different parts of the premises due to the Ramadan period. The school's director, Malam Abdul Qadir, said the institution has 313 boarding students, but only 3 were in the affected block at the time of the incident. However, the commandant, Zamfara State Fire Service Tukul Bararabi, said firefighters responded after receiving a distress call and were able to control the fire, preventing it from spreading to other buildings. The federal government has been urged to review Executive Order 9, saying gas flaring penalties should serve strictly as deterrents against environmental violations, not a source of government revenue. The call was made at a World Press Conference in Abuja, where some environment organizations advocated for policy reforms to address the environmental and health impact of gas flaring in the Niger Delta. Speaking on behalf of the coalition, Itside Victor described the continued remittance of gas flaring penalties into the Federation account as a fundamental injustice to Niger Delta communities that bear the brunt of the health and environmental consequences of routine gas flaring. The groups highlighted decades of exposure of Niger Delta residents to toxic emissions from oil and gas operations. And on the international scene, the United Nations UN has lamented over the mounting threats to women's rights worldwide, highlighting rampant femicide and horrific abuse exposed in cases like that of the U.S. sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. A UN chief Volker Turk, while addressing the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, denounced social systems that silence women and girls, allowing powerful men to abuse them with impunity. He highlighted the extreme situation in Afghanistan, warning that the system of segregation imposed on women is reminiscent of apartheid based on gender rather than race. Turk also pointed to two cases that have recently caused shocked waves around the world, those of convicted Epstein and French rape survivor Giselle Pellicourt. And lastly, on sport news, the National Sports Commission has handed over ALMAJIRI Bello Stadium to Kaduna State Government for rehabilitation and upgrade. Spokesperson for the Commission, Kehinde Ajayi, in a statement, said the Commission's chairman, Shehu Dikko, signed the Memorandum of Understanding (MOU) for the Commission, while Governor Obasani signed on behalf of the state government. The agreement, signed following presidential approval, will increase the stadium's capacity from 12,000 to 32,000. Dikko noted that the sports sector had recorded unprecedented growth, adding that sport is now measured beyond medals, with a target of contributing at least 3% to the nation's gross domestic product (GDP) annually. On his part, Governor Obasani lauded the Commission for repositioning Nigeria's sports, noting that the redevelopment would transform the ALMAJIRI Bello Stadium into a world-class facility. Finally on the news, the recap of the top stories again. President Tinubu urges National Assembly to guard against abuse of state police. Zamfara government approves employment of over 3,000 qualifying teachers. Troops arrest scores of terrorists and rescue over 400 captives nationwide. And on the international scene, United Nations describes violence against women global emergency. On sport news, federal government hands over ALMAJIRI Bello Stadium to Kaduna State for rehabilitation. That was Standard Voice Television Global News. Our next news bulletin comes to you later at 6 p.m. On behalf of the news editor, Ilya Adamu Auta, and the production crew, I am Sumaya Mustafa, thanking you for staying with us.